Training Simulator is a very important game mode in DC Dark Legion for resource acquisition. You'll earn the coveted biostimulators, which are one of the integral ingredients to upgrading your champion's levels. You'll also be able to earn every 10 levels some mother boxes. And then about every 100 levels, you'll earn a very nice milestone reward. And we'll take a look at those. You can see that you're able to get these simulation quotas, which is basically just a ticket to allow you to do an attempt on one of the levels. If you're struggling with a level and you use a lot of these quotas, you will have to wait. I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's probably around an hour or so for each ticket to replenish. So you have to be careful about that. The nice thing is that every 10 levels, you will get an additional 10 quotas for completing that level, that milestone. So if you're able to push pretty far, you'll continue to kind of sustain yourself. Like you can definitely push several hundred levels in a day if you so choose, and if you have the champions to do so. So just want to point that out. You're not going to be gated to 10 to 12 attempts per day. It's really just you're going to be gated to if you fail that many attempts. Like right now, if I fail all 12 of these attempts, then I'll be out for the day and have to wait. The other resource that is tied to your training simulator level is your XP. As you climb higher in the ranks, the faster you'll be able to accumulate XP passively. I think right now I'm getting close to where when it maxes out for the day, I get maybe 1.8 to 2 million XP that I can claim. So it's a really nice way to obtain passive resources for the account. We'll take a look at these rewards really quickly. So if you look at the training simulator milestones, you start out, the first reward milestone you're going to get is at level 100. It's a little difficult to get that level completed. It's really kind of a test of strength for early game accounts within the first week or so that you're playing the game. And it will take probably some leveling up of your champions and maybe even getting lucky on some pulls or just putting a decent amount of force investment into whatever champions you're focusing on. But beating that level is going to get you 20 Lex Luthor shards. And he's actually a pretty decent champion now that we've had several months to test him out. The Legion of Doom team, which does require heavy investment. It does require some spending for some of the Mythic Plus champions. But it's one of the teams that we'll be talking about in this video that's worth building for Training Simulator. You see that you can also get ACDC shards, anvils, and random mythic shards for these completion rewards, and you can complete all the way up to level 1600 in just the regular training sim as of today's date. One thing we're not going to cover a lot in this video is there's this thing called Realm of Fate, which is champion or tag synergy specific training simulator modes that you can do. They go up to approximately level 500 right now, and there's quite a few of them that are available. You got Justice League, Arkham's Most Wanted, Legion of Doom, Justice League Dark, Bat Family, Superman Family, and the Blood Moon Arena, which is for League of Assassins, which just came out. We also have two kind of general purpose ones for the Energy Wielder, Metahuman, and Weapon Master tags. And those are actually a lot easier to complete than the others. Probably the first ones that you'll complete, as you can see with my statuses over here. But going back to Training Simulator, as I mentioned, 1600 levels, and you can go over here and see where you stack versus everyone else on your server with this ranking system. You can see that I am ranked 7 right now, pushed really hard with my Superman Family and Justice League Dark to get here. And I think I'm probably tracking a little bit better than my peers in a lot of aspects. And it's really thanks to Superman Family towards the end here that I was able to get to this point. I am kind of hard stuck at about the 1500 level. I get pretty beat up on this level, actually. You can see that several of the server's whales are not too far ahead of me, so I feel kind of good about my positioning here. And then the last thing that you'll see from kind of the display screen that is important to look at is the first clear milestones. So, the early ones aren't as impactful, they're not as helpful, because it's kind of easy to clear those first few milestones with just whatever team. You can see here that we've got someone who was using literally 3 healers, Batman and Superman. Katsu is, I think, no longer playing the game, but he had a lot of these early levels, and he did start kind of switching things up, I think, later on. Him and Micro Speed were going back and forth. But you'll see Katsu kind of disappears, but pretty decent investment into some of the key early game champions to get where he's at. So, the one thing that I will say about Training Sim is like the first goal for your account once you get past level 100 is to get to 1,000. That's like the true end game. As far as, those training simulator levels, it does start to get a little bit more difficult, and you're going to need like one really well invested team and a couple of subs whenever you get to that point in order to see much more progress. I think you can reasonably get to level 1,000 with Blue Star and Purple Star champions, but you are going to need 1 or 2 solid bleed champions in order to do that. Now, I'll show you what I'm up against at this current level of my account. I have done some investment into Superman family since the last time I tried this, so we can give it another shot here. And I believe I had Fate here just because I was having some trouble surviving. Typically, I'll run like Flash with this team and try to cycle the Supergirl Ultimate as much as I can. But I also end up running Fate or Martian Manhunter in that other tank slot up there to give myself a better chance of winning. Let's see if we can do this with Dr. Fate up there in the front. You want to get that crypto ult off as quickly as you can, as many times as you can, and also Superboy. Sometimes you're only able to get those ults off once or twice. Very rarely are you in Training Sim going to get your Superman family Krypton energy all the way up to level 3 before you end up dying. And you can see we lost this one here. We can try it again. We'll throw Supergirl in the front. And then we can try it with Constantine and see if he's able to do anything different. You can see we just lack the sustain to be able to get anything done here. There's probably some other comps that I can play around with where I maybe use extra healing to get us over the finish line. So we can take our Constantine out and we can put in Green Lantern and see if that helps us a little bit. The problem is we lose those frontline champions before the healers even are able to do much. Looks like that did help us a little bit, but we're probably still going to not be able to sustain. Let's just play it out. Yeah, we end up just getting wrecked there at the end of it. But that's what you're dealing with at these higher levels. It's just you kind of have to test out, different comps and see what works for you. And you're going to be relying on probably either needing more stars on your champions or just continuing to invest in your best champions and get their force maxed out, get their unique legacies, and that's what's going to get you across the finish line in these situations. Jumping over to the graphic that I've made for Training Simulator, what I've tried to do with this is just put together 5 basic teams that you can kind of set your sights on, and this should align fairly well with the bleed strategy guide that I've put out with my tier list, and also with just the tag team synergy guide that I've put out as well. I have another one of those coming out for August that should align pretty closely with some of the teams that we've put together here. But we'll talk a little bit about each of these teams. And like I said, in general, you're not always going to be able to use a cookie cutter team for Training Simulator. It's kind of a puzzle type game mode where you look at the teams that you're facing and you try to figure out what their win condition is and how you can try to counteract that. And so, that's kind of what I typically end up doing when I'm trying to build a team there. But generally, I will start from kind of a meta team to do that. So I'll start with my Justice League Dark team, or I'll start with Superman family, and then start mixing things in to see what I can do from that. But I think the kind of top 5 teams for Training Simulator, they all include some of the best champions specifically made, I think, for Training Simulator or for just kind of like team combat in general. So, Justice League Dark, I think, is incredible team for Training Simulator, because the idea is to get out a ton of AoE damage, spiritual damage in particular, and you have a lot of ways to protect your team and also a lot of ways to augment and increase their damage here. You've got two tanks up front that can tank a ton of damage, and Dr. Fate also has the added ability of being able to provide those shields, which are incredibly beneficial for trying to protect against damage. And that the ones that you just saw me lose there in Training Simulator 1501 or so, I think Justice League Dark might be worth me giving another shot there, or some sort of hybrid that might be helpful for me. But in general, kind of like the two things that you must have to do well in Training Simulator is either a really good AoE damage dealer that you can dump all your support behind, or a single target damage dealer who you can cycle their ultimate as many times as possible and hone in on specific champions to take them out. So champions like Constantine, Superman, Sinestro, Green Arrow, who isn't on here, but especially for free-to-play and early game accounts, Green Arrow is really good for that purpose. We have Nightwing, who is really good at that single target damage. Deathstroke is another champion that would fit that bill as well. So I've included some of the most important champions here. Those single target damage dealers, really, really good. And then I already mentioned Constantine on the AoE side, but also Supergirl, who is, in my opinion, and I just put out a tier list video recently for August, I think that Supergirl is, if not the best champion in the game, one of the best three. And she is just a powerhouse in pretty much every game mode. So definitely worth using her here if you have her available. You see, I have Justice League and Superman family included on this list. And I think a lot of players would benefit from using Justice League as their kind of primary home base for Training Simulator when they first start out. You're going to get a lot of easy to build Justice League team members when you first start out. If you're going for Superman at all, you're definitely going to want to invest in that lineup. Now, obviously, you have the issue of Green Lantern being a pay-to-win champion, but the rest of this team is fairly accessible early on. You got Flash and Shazam in the League contribution store that you can purchase there and kind of grind those shards out. Aquaman obviously might be kind of the hardest one to get a hold of there, but what you would end up doing here is just throwing in Mira as your healer, and then you've got a pretty solid team comp here. Now, if you don't have some of the other champions, again, you can throw in Green Arrow to help you out. You can use Wonder Woman, who starts out as a legendary, in place of Shazam, and so you can kind of build the team around that. You could even try things like using Captain Cold or one of the other legendaries that can kind of ramp up your team in place of the ones that I have chosen here. But a lot of the reason why this particular Justice League team works is it has a lot of control elements to it. There are stuns that some of the champions can do. Shazam can taunt. You have Aquaman, who can incapacitate, and he has his little vortex AoE ultimate where he pulls everybody in. And then, of course, you have Flash, who's just going to keep cycling Superman's ultimate as much as possible. You bring everybody in, you ult. Hawkgirl might have some fringe use cases here because of that. But, again, I think if you can build this lineup in particular, it is kind of the proven best one that you could probably come up with. Only other caveat that I would add here is you could probably use Martian Manhunter in place of Shazam, and that would work out really well for you also. Then we have Superman family, which is, again, I've said this a few times, who I've been using for Training Simulator recently, and they just, they clean house. And especially if you have a heavily invested Supergirl, you can get away with your other champions not being quite as heavily invested. Now, you will probably need either a second healer or a good tank in that fifth slot, which is where I have Flash is kind of really more of a flex spot than anything for this team. You could pretty much fit anyone into that fifth slot and make it work. But I think Flash is probably the home base for Superman family for this event, as well as Combat Cycle, I should say, as well also. But Martian Manhunter slots in again really well into that 5th slot for Superman family if you have him. But this one's definitely going to be in the high investment category. Moving to the 4th team, that's going to be your Legion of Doom team, and this one is kind of whale territory here. You've got 3 Mythic Plus champions, similar to the Superman family. But the problem with this one, reason why it truly is whale territory, is all 3 of those are back to back to back in the bleed. So you're going to need significant investment in them to see what this team's potential really is. And also, I would say, turns out Lex is a really good champion if you have him at high investment, so like red stars or even yellow stars. He's probably pretty good too if you have good force invested into him. But this Legion of Doom team has been kind of like the top of the meta for quite a while, and it works really, really well. Any flex is going to work here. You know, if you feel like you need some healing, you can throw in any of your healers, like whatever's the best available as your 5th. Maybe you need a little bit of extra tankiness so that you can survive long enough to do your damage. Ultimately, with this team, I think the goal is to just do as much damage output as possible very quickly. Deathstroke is going to, in tandem with Sinestro, shut down whatever the win condition is on the other side, and then you can kind of take out the stragglers from there. And so you almost, in some cases, don't even need a healer for this team to work because of how fast the match is going to end. But really solid team with the Legion of Doom. And then the last one is going to be your Teen Titans. So this is for all the Nightwing fans in the world. He's still at the very top of the meta right now. And, you know, Nightwing is a plug-and-play champion. I would say you could almost throw him in as a flex on any of the other teams that we're talking about here, and it would probably be helpful. But I also think you can get a lot out of him by trying to supercharge his abilities using the Bat Family and Teen Titans tags. So I've included champions that allow you to do that here. You could use Raven as your healer instead of Starfire if you don't have Starfire. And you could also, you know, play around with some other champions in place of, let's say, Batman, for example. You could probably pull him out and include a number of other options for your 5th. You could throw in a damage dealer that isn't affiliated with either of the tag synergies. You could even, you know, throw in like a Red Robin if you had a Red Robin well invested, or if you had him on your roster. So a lot of optionality with the Teen Titans team as well. Well, that's going to wrap up this training simulator video. Let me know down in the comments below what team has carried you the furthest in Training Simulator. If you want to get a copy of the infographic companion to this video, it's available in my Discord server, as well as I'll be posting it in the official Discord server at some point in the next week or so. So you can download it from either of those spots. Make sure you share it with your leagues. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. It helps with the algorithm. If not, I will see you on the next video.